Hey, what's up guys? John here with the biggest companies in America and Donald Trump are doing right now says everything about the future of where we are going over the next 24 months. Now, what does all of these luxury apartments and condos and townhouses all have to do with this? Because the more you start to connect the dots, the more that you'll see what the future is going to look like in this country. So Donald Trump gave federal employees, all of them, allegedly, until February 6th, to accept a buyout, 8 months pay.
If they choose to resign, it would be effective immediately, and those employees would get pay and benefits through September. It's just the latest move in the administration's effort to shrink the size of our federal government.
Essentially saying if you are not down with what the administration wants to do, you can get paid through September. You just have to tell us in the next 2 weeks whether you're resigning or not.
Now, when that's happening, some people will say, look, this is good. We're going to shrink the government. We need to shrink the government. This is a great thing for the country. And a lot of people look at that and say, that's exactly what's happening.
President Trump is making more than 2 million federal workers an offer. Quit now and accept a severance package.
But what I like to do is kind of pull back and say, well, what other entities are doing the similar thing or taking a similar path? When you look at UAW, the UAW strike that's unfolded in the automotive space.
Now, day 3 of a historic strike by thousands of United Auto Workers.
You look at United Airlines, their strike that they had.
100% of United Airlines flight attendants say they're ready to strike.
You look at teachers' unions, the strike in which they had.
2 major Twin Cities school districts recently authorized a vote to strike, with 97% of teachers.
Kaiser Permanente, 80,000 employees, the huge strike that they had.
More than 75,000 Kaiser Permanente workers are set to go on strike at midnight.
You start to look at all of these major strikes unfolding across all of these companies within the last 12 months at the same time in which they're offering major buyouts and other companies are trying to find ways to reduce their headcount. What are the odds that all of these massive entities are all looking to get rid of employees at the same time? I would say the odds are pretty slim. And I think there's a much bigger story here than just trying to get rid of federal workers that we need to talk about. Now, here's what this story looks like. You see this building right here? Looks like a row of townhouses. And then that one here, that row of townhouses. And then all these luxury apartments. Well, this is how this is all gonna correlate and all connect. All these properties, they're not on 30-year fixed rate residential home loans. These properties are on 3, 5, or 7-year adjustable rate loans that they need to refinance. Most of these properties, you can see how new they are. The construction probably started the last couple of years. They're gonna have loans that are gonna come due. Now, they borrowed money at much lower interest rates. So if they borrow debt at 3% interest rates, 3.5%, 4%, 4.5%, and now rates are 7.5%, and insurance has climbed dramatically, well, what does that mean? It means the value of these properties has gone down substantially. And we're now walking into an economy that's softening. And so if these investors cannot refinance their debt, well, these investors will end up going out of business. A new investor will buy it at a much lower cost basis, and the taxable income on these plots will go down. But if at the same time, the US job market is softening and millions of people are losing their jobs across all different industries, well, you're going to have a demand in social services. And so when you have a demand in social services and taxable revenue is going down from both business owners, residents, and property taxes, that's going to be a problem. And so what are these local federal governments going to do and these big companies going to do? They're going to be leaning into automation, AI, and technology to really acquire more data and information and reduce their expenses. Now, it reminds me of this conversation that Sam Altman had. And he said, in the past, you would need tens of thousands of employees to have $1 billion company. And, now maybe you need 10 or 50 or 100. But in the future, it will just be one person. You could have one person have $1 billion company with automation and where the world's going right now with tech. And so why do city governments, federal governments need millions of employees? The answer is they don't. And that's exactly what companies are thinking too. Why do we need all of these employees? And now a unique angle that they're taking to get rid of a lot of these employees is saying you need to come back to the office knowing that in 2020, 2021, you had tons of people They left Los Angeles, New York City, Boston, San Francisco, a lot of cities and states, and they relocated. And they bought homes in Texas, in Florida, in Tennessee, and they bought these properties with very low interest rates, 3.5% interest rate, and locked in a 30-year fixed rate, thinking, hey, I'm gonna work remote, I'm gonna make $250,000 a year, pay no taxable, no city or state tax, and I'm gonna take this all the way to the bank. Well, now a lot of these employees are saying, look, you have to come back to the office because they want to get rid of these employees. And so you have these people that can't sell their home and they can't afford to buy another home because where rates are right now. So people are locked in to their properties trying to find a solution with how they're going to make it. And so this is why I believe we're walking into the great firing, where we're going to just see millions and millions of people. They're going to be forced to walk away from their homes and their debt commitments. I'm not saying all, but I'm saying millions of people over the next couple of years. It's going to be a unique shift that's going to unfold. I think that the spot to be in this is cash heavy, very low personal debt, ideally none, and investing along the way. Because I believe the government is going to continue to print a ton of money over the coming few years to do a couple things. One, to act like they're coming to save the day for everybody. Two, it's easier to pay back their debt in an inflated environment. So they're going to continue to print and print and print. And the more they print, the more people need them. So that's what's going to happen. Inflation is going to get worse. The economy is going to get more challenging. And those that are preparing now, I believe, will be better off. I saw this podcast with Ray Dalio, the All In podcast. I thought it was really good. And he was saying, look, you want to have cash, you want to invest it. And he's kind of talking about the best approach to do it. But he said the future is inflationary. Like there's no way around it, and the future is going to be very, very inflationary. And I agree with him. I think the future is going to be extremely inflationary. But if that's happening, if the job market's, going to the gutter, well, ultimately, where does this go? Well, it goes right into the hands of the rich. And that's exactly where people want to be. They look at these homes. All of these brand new properties, every single property is like the modern finishes. This is every single city in America this happened to the last 4 or 5 years. All these homes renovated and flipped, and people are spending half of their income to live in one of these properties, thinking that, it's never going to rain. We're just walking into good days, going back to normal. How are we walking back into normalcy? I don't see it. And I think Trump knows for sure he doesn't need 2 million workers. And I think large companies know the same exact thing. They don't need tens of thousands of employees when they can offshore a lot of their expense and they can automate a good chunk of it as well. And so if you have a great job, you want to hold on to it. If you're supplying a ton of value to your employer will do everything that they possibly can to hold on to you. But if you're not, better believe that the harder that the world gets, the more the employer is going to be looking at their bottom line. And if you bought one of these homes like this, any of these brand new homes, you want to make sure that you got a rainy day fund, at least I would say 6 months to a year minimum, to where you can weather a storm. This is what I think is happening. I think we're going to continue to see corporations, companies trying to find ways to get rid of tons and tons of expense. Because how are these companies profitable? They're profitable in a good economy. Low interest rates, consumers have a lot of money to spend. They're traveling, they're out there enjoying life. But when they can't afford it, they're gonna have less income coming in and their expenses are only gonna continue to grow. So that's what I'm betting. I'm betting we're seeing just the beginning of this. And I think it's just gonna present the greatest investing opportunity in American history. Like, I don't think we'll ever see another investing opportunity like this in my entire lifetime, and here's why. When these assets trade hands, in 2007, 2008, you had CNBC, CNN, all these major media outlets saying, it's the end of the world. Everything is going away. Like, we're walking into a major collapse, right? And you had some small local mom and pop investors that were out there buying houses, not many, but you had some. You had Invitation Homes founded by Blackstone out there buying houses. And, you know, they had this formula called the dollar more guys, which what they did was they look at a house like this. They'd say, oh, it's 1,000 square feet hypothetically. It would cost $100 a foot to build it. You know, it costs 100 grand to build it. The land's worth 50, maybe all in to replicate it to 150 grand. If we can buy it for 75, hypothetically, then we'd buy it. And we pay $1 more than everyone else at the auction to buy that deal. Made sense, right? But this crash, what I think is going to happen is I don't think it's going to be Sally selling to Joe or Joe selling to Michelle. I think it's going to be middle class selling, banks quietly unloading their non-performing debt to larger institutions so that they can continue saying that the economy is good, and they can continue taxing these properties at a price point in which doesn't adequately reflect the value, and these hedge funds and these institutions are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's my bet. I mean, look at this. You got 3 out of 4 homes for sale right here, right? Literally 3 out of 4. 1, 2, 3. 3 out of 4 properties for sale. And so when these hedge funds acquire, do you think the hedge funds are going to start selling it back to Main Street? No, it's going to be Wall Street institutions selling to Wall Street institutions, making fees, and they're just going to ride the inflation wave off of this. But then here comes the big question: is what happens when these Wall Street firms acquire a large chunk of these houses? MetLife Insurance, and I mentioned this in the past, that 40% of all single-family homes will be owned by institutions in the next 5 years, according to them. And if that happened, where do you think rents will be? Right? Where do you think rents will be? They'll continue to increase rents because they have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders to get them the best return possible. And so they'll continue to increase rents. So in the event of a universal basic income, let's say that the UBI was $3,000 a person, well, maybe they find a way to price housing in a large chunk to absorb most of that UBI, right? Some people say, look, John, UBI is not going to happen. That's not going to happen. You start to see tens of millions of people losing their jobs. You start to see kind of the direction where it's going, like Elon talking about a UBI, Zuckerberg talking about a UBI. All the billionaires have been talking about this for a while, saying this is what's coming. I personally think the stimulus was, you know, the test pilot program for it. And we're definitely walking into a UBI. It might be 2 to 5 years from now, but I think eventually we're getting there. And so being a landlord, owning property with a low cost basis, providing affordable housing with 30-year fixed rate debt or no debt at all, is probably the spot you want to be in. Sitting in cash and cash alone for the next 5 years, probably not the spot you want to be in, because they're just going to continue to erode your purchasing power. Another spot you don't want to be in is being heavily leveraged, like buying one of these properties for $500,000-$600,000. When just a couple years ago, you could have probably bought a house on this street, and that house, it wouldn't have been a new finished product like this, but maybe it was 200 grand, right? You know, my grandmother and grandfather, one worked at a glass factory, one worked at a box factory. They didn't make much money, right? But they had 4 daughters, each had a car. They go on vacation once a year. And when she passed away 5-6 years ago, you know, she had a nice nest egg, you know, a nest egg to where she could have lived for another 15 years, 20 years. Today, if you're making 200 grand in a big city, you're not saving money there. That's why people are moving to Cleveland. So, and other affordable markets. I'm not just saying Cleveland's it, I'm just saying affordability is it. People are going to be struggling as this situation continues to get worse. Just imagine when these builders, you got $1 trillion in multifamily debt that has to get refinanced in the next 12 months. The entire commercial real estate market is a $20 trillion market. So you just start to think about, that's just multifamily. Now, I'm not talking about office. That's office, multifamily, industrial, that's 2.7 trillion in the next 2 years. A lot of this debt's gonna roll over and the tax bases are gonna shrink. These governments are gonna have no choice but to continue to do what Trump is saying right now, which is to shave down massive headcount. And the same with a lot of these corporations and companies. No choice but to shave down headcount. And these employers, they're not going to be able to eat the rising inflation costs. There's zero chance. I went and just got a sandwich, a basic sandwich, a water, a little coleslaw. It was like 17, almost 18 bucks in Cleveland, right? Like, you think employers are going to spend $35 an hour, $30 an hour for labor, and that's really what you need to make minimum in most cities in this country? I don't think so. I just don't see it. So I think we're in the beginning stages of this. I think the next couple of years will be, fascinating to witness, and I think it's just an important time for us to all understand where this is going. You want to invest. You want to have a great relationship with your employer or a great business, and you want to position yourself for an inflationary world. Best case scenario, I'm 100% right. Worst case scenario, you're way better off for being prepared, right? There's no downside by being more prepared. You just look at all the smart people. Look at what they're all doing. Warren Buffett, Mark Cuban, they're sitting on these massive cash piles anticipating a crash. Like the cash pile that Buffett's sitting on, over $300 billion through Berkshire, it looks like it's almost double what he was sitting on just a couple years ago. The alarm bells are on. It looks like a problem is on the horizon, and all great opportunities are generally found inside of massive problems. Look at a lot of these like leveraged buyout firms, private equity firms. They make their money when the business owner is in substantial distress. In real estate transactions, like an apartment building like this, you don't make your money buying a brand new apartment building where the seller's like, oh, I'd sell it if I got this price. You get it when this person has all the rents at $500 a unit and the market value is $1,200, and they don't realize that, hey, they could go spend 10 grand a unit and double the rent, and now the building is doubled in value, right? They make the money during those periods. And I think we're walking into this period right now where you're going to be able to do that with acquiring businesses, apartment buildings, everything, right? You're just going to start seeing a lot of people that are going to have no choice but to fire sale. Let's have a conversation about this. I think it's fascinating. Like, look at this, Spice, and you have, like another Spice Hospitality Group, and all these modern, cool coffee shops. Everyone was thriving the last couple of years. Looks like the party's almost over, and that's where the real party is going to start for investors. So if you'd like to learn about what I'm doing here in Cleveland, you can click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a call at singlefamilyinvestors.com. If you have $100,000 or more that you're thinking about investing, I'm buying as many great deals as I could possibly find right now, and not compromising on neighborhood, price point, specs of the house. We have an aggressive campaign going out to find incredible deals for our investors, and I think we're going to scale up as the economy gets worse, and the amount of wealth that will be generated over the next couple of years by these actions, I think, will set up our families forever. Click the link in the description below to learn more, and catch you next video.